inviting me to this very exciting conference. And at the same time, I should complain to the organizer that this is actually the worst place in the program to be here as a speaker. You know why it's the worst place in the program? After these really exciting presentations in the previous section, you can't compete. So, and it's even worse if you speak to this audience as a researcher. So researchers are mainly interested in data, and data are sometimes quite boring. So it's a very difficult task for me, but on the other hand, that's how it is. So I think one of the main tasks of research is to provide data, to provide the knowledge base, and all of the different institutions involved in this conference actually very much depend on a very good knowledge base for their decisions to make the best efforts for the resources they are going to invest. So my question is, what do we really know about sport and physical activity at a European level? What kind of comparable data do we actually have? And we do have some data on sport. So these are data from the prevalence of exercise and sport at the European Union. And as you can see, what we find here, that the highest prevalence of engagement in exercise and sport is in Scandinavia and in the west part of Central Europe, and less engagement in exercise or sport at the population level in Southern Europe and also in Eastern Europe. So this is a well-known so-called north-south gradient if it comes to sport and exercise. But since the mid-90s we do have a different paradigms called the health-enhancing physical activity paradigm. So we are not just looking from a public health perspective for sport, but we are also interested in a broader notion of physical activity, including the physical transportation. So if we now do have data also for physical transport, you see that the picture is a little bit different from the previous one. Now the highest prevalences are more in Central Europe, and people reporting less physical activity moving from place to place in the North and the South Europe. So it's different picture that we do have here. The next issue then is related to opportunities to be physically active. This is crucial. We know that opportunities are a crucial trigger to become or to stay physically active, to be involved in sport and exercise. But what do we know about the distribution of opportunities for physical activity among the European countries? Actually, there are almost none data on this issue so far. So what we do have is the perception of opportunities. This is one item that we brought in the Eurobarometer. It's a survey in all countries of the European Union, and you can see here that the perception of the opportunities, that means offers from sport clubs in the neighborhood, physical activity friendly environment, my community does a lot to support my physical activity. These kind of opportunity created by the context of physical activity. Again, the picture is a little bit different. You find countries like Sweden, for example, which are high prevalence in sport and in exercise. Also, they perceive very well opportunities. But if you see Spain, lower prevalence for physical activity and sport in the previous slides, but actually a quite good perception. So the association between at least the perception of opportunities for physical active and real rates of activities are not so clear. So we need more information, but we do not have more information. I just asked one representative of the European Union, do we at least have data on the average of sport facilities, comparable data between European nations? We obviously do not have this kind of data. So this is the background for a project that we are running, and this project is called the IMPALA project. This is one last background slides. It shows that not everything that is going on is related to sport facilities in the area of sport and physical activity. However, we talked a lot now about the outside of sport facilities part, but at least half of the activities are taking place at sport facilities. So it's an important issue to include the sport facilities as an infrastructure in the discussion that we started so far. So far, they have been excluded also at a European project that mainly focused on public physical transportation, city development, but not on this broader concept of infrastructures for leisure time physical activity. So what we understand in the IMPALA project on local infrastructures for leisure time physical activity, and a core part would include sport facilities and their development, and what is the future of the sport facilities in this broader movement. And of course they also would include infrastructures and recreational areas that are designed for leisure time physical activity, like playgrounds, and they would also include the broader urban spaces, bike lanes, and these kind of things, but also natural spaces used for sport and physical activity. Some background information on the project. So it's on improving infrastructures for leisure time physical activity in the local arena. So that now takes the issue of the policy link of the research. This research has been done or is done for DG Sanko, not for DG Research. DG Sanko is, as the health director, public health director of the EU, is interested in policy development. So what is the added value of DG Sanko for policy development in EU countries? They are not primarily interested in research. So research may come with a project, but they are interested at the end to have a kind of recommendations or measures or plans how to improve infrastructures. So IMPALA, as a general objective, will focus on identifying and then implementing and disseminating good practice in the planning, financing, building and managing of local infrastructures for leisure time physical activity. So it's a very broad approach on developing infrastructures, but the main focus will be on the planning and implementing issues. There are 24 institutions from certain European countries involved, and you see as part of this kind of research policy relationship at DG Sanko, you see that these are on the one hand partners from the university setting, from research, but at the other hand there are collaborating partners from NGO sector as well as from the public government sector. The work packages that we are dealing with in this IMPALA project are first of all identifying policies on infrastructure development in our area. Second is assessing mechanisms and instruments on development of infrastructures. And the third one that is on the basis of this inventory, to identify good practice and develop a kind of guideline for good practice in this area. There are other work packages, more general one, like dissemination and evaluation.